Exclusively on Secular Media Network, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Hello and welcome to the Gaytheist Manifesto, your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement. I am your host, Callie Wright, joined by my co-host, Ari Stillman. What's up, Ari?
Against all odds, I still somehow exist.
That's really dark, Ari.
That's my life. That's how I do it.
Good? You all right?
Yes. No, I wasn't talking about that. I was saying, like, maybe I would have just gone poofy or something.
Oh, okay. So, like, the odds are in favor of you just, like, randomly blinking out of existence in the universe?
Of course.
Okay. That's still kind of dark.
When you have this many contradictions and paradoxes rolled into one person, it becomes a little risky.
Ah, fair. Well, this week we're going to have a discussion about bisexuality. And you may be asking yourself, you're probably not, but you may be asking yourself, why did it take so long for the show to talk about one of the letters in the damn acronym?
It's okay, we're used to it.
Yeah.
We are participating in bisexual erasure. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. So I'm going to be honest, and this is probably not a good reason, but it's a reason, and it's the fact that, like, if you're a person who can accept that queerness is a thing, bisexuality is the thing that makes the least sense to not get, right? Like, I don't understand how it's a foreign concept to somebody that you might be attracted to more than one gender. It just doesn't compute to me that would be a problem for someone to understand. So, that's probably a problematic thing on my side, and that's fair, because depending on the day, I think bisexuality kind of fits for me. Sometimes, like, I vacillate between that and pansexuality because sometimes I care about gender, sometimes I don't, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So anyways, our guests this week from the Biskeptical Podcast, Trav Mamone and Morgan Stringer. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And Ari, I had no idea you believed in the rapture.
Yeah, I'm a good Christian.
Wait, what?
Because she said she was scared she would just go poof one day, and I was like, wait a second, that sounds familiar.
Oh, okay. Ari's pronouns are they, by the way.
Bitch.
Damn.
I'll just leave.
No chill.
No, what you have to do when you get someone's pronouns wrong is start crying and say how guilty you feel and that you are going to go into the bathroom and flush yourself down the toilet in penance.
I don't think I can fit, but I'll try the bathtub drain.
That's a valuable piece of knowledge that we've gained on the show here today.
That is.
So,
yeah,
friends, anytime you get someone's pronouns wrong, that's the process.
Yep, that's how you atone for your sins against the trans gods.
So, either one of you, whoever wants to take it, let's talk about the podcast for a second. What do y'all do?
Well, it was my idea. Morgan and I, we both have our own separate podcasts. I do By Any Means, and Morgan's a co-host of No Religion Required. And one day back in April, I was just thinking, you know what? I should really do something with the name Biskeptical, because bisexuals just love bisexual puns, and so Biskeptical would be the perfect one for bisexual atheists. And so I just wrote on my Facebook wall one day, I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a sister podcast called Biskeptical, but I'm not really quite sure what I want to do. If any fellow bisexual atheists want to chime in and conspire with me, go right ahead. And Morgan said, yeah, sure, I'm down with it. So I just messaged her. It's like, let's do, I don't know, some sort of news commentary show where, like, twice a month, hint, bi-monthly. Exactly.
The puns are many layered.
Although, wouldn't that be bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly, bi-monthly.
It could be either way.
I mean, it's still a bi pun anyway. So that's good.
Absolutely.
It goes both ways, Callie.
Oh yes.
Jesus, this show we've been going for 5 minutes and it's already downhill.
Down the toilet, just like Morgan's going to be after this.
I know, it's all my fault. It's all my fault.
Okay, so let's talk for a second about what bisexuality is, because I think there is probably a common misconception. Morgan, you want to take it since Trav did the intro bit for the show?
Oh, what misconception do I start with?
Well, let's not do misconceptions first. Let's just talk about what does it mean to be bisexual. What does that mean?
Okay, well, it's being attracted to more than just one gender. So, say you were heterosexual, you would be attracted to. If you're a heterosexual man, you would say you're attracted to women. If you're a homosexual man, you would be attracted to other men. With bisexual, that means that you're attracted to more than one gender. And a lot of people think that means just as a bisexual woman, that means I'm interested in just people that identify as women or just people who identify strictly as man. But that's not true. Bisexuality includes, it's more than one gender, so that includes gender fluid, non-binary, genderqueer, you name it.
Right, and that's what I think probably the biggest misconception is, because when you ask most people what bisexual means, what they will tell you is that they're into both.
Yeah.
The assumption being that there are only two, which obviously we know that's not the case.
Because Trav and I exist.
Right, right. You do. That's we've proven that empirically.
Ari and I are the token non-binaries of the atheist podcast community.
That's right.
Aw.
Solidarity.
Right, fist in the air. So I think because a lot of people who are maybe less educated on the subject will think that bisexuality reinforces the binary and therefore is trans exclusionary, and it's not the case.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite.
Right. So, and the reason it's bi, because bi obviously implies two, and that's because it means that your sexuality goes in two directions. Mm-hmm. Towards your own gender and towards other genders. And it doesn't necessarily just mean there's only two that I'm attracted to.
Right.
It means that your sexuality goes in different directions. So, Trav, tell me what's the difference between bisexual and pansexual?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Most people say...
I just asked you, Trav. So. I'm sorry. I'm in one of those moods today. Go ahead.
Bitch. I'm just kidding.
This is what happens when we have our friends on the show. We need to stop doing this.
Right.
Oh, exactly. Anyways, most, like you said earlier, most people think that, bi means you're just attracted to men and women, and pansexual means, you're attracted to, cis men, cis women, and transgender people, which is to imply that binary trans people, trans men aren't real men. I don't know. But the way I like to describe it is this. Pansexual means... And Ari, you can chime in and say, "You totally got it wrong, you ass."
I'll probably say that.
Yeah, I know you will, definitely. Anyways, bisexual, I like to say, means being attracted to people of the same gender and people of a different gender, whereas pansexual, I like to think of as... I don't like to say gender blind because that kind of sounds like colorblind, which is highly problematic. But basically, in a sense, attracted to all genders. Now, a lot of people debate whether if you're non-monosexual, whether you're
something other than heterosexual.
Right? Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're defining all the words because we're throwing a lot of those out there.
Oh yeah. Monosexual means, you're attracted to just one gender, whether your own or a different gender. So non-monosexual is sort of a catch-all term for people who are attracted to people of multiple genders, hence the phrase. Anyways, people who are attracted to people of different genders, a lot of times they debate whether or not they should identify as bi or pan, and I say, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. If you want to identify as bi, you feel like that describes you more, go right ahead. If you want to identify as pan, that's fine. Or if you just want to identify as queer, that's fine too,
Yeah, and the kind of the way that I've always described it, and you all can tell me if this is inaccurate, but the way that I kind of describe it when I'm trying to break it down for folks is that for someone who is bisexual, generally speaking, gender is a factor in their attractions. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're only attracted to one or even just two specific genders, but that gender is relevant to the attraction, and that for people who are pansexual, gender is not relevant to the attraction at all. It's not even a factor. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, for the most part, I think.
Are you talking about how, like, some bisexual people will be more romantically attracted to, say, one gender than another, but have, say, an equal amount of sexual attraction to all genders?
Well, the way that I see it, the reason that I hesitate to use the term pansexual for myself is that gender is absolutely a factor in my attraction. Mm-hmm. So I have definitely found myself attracted to people of lots of different genders, all sorts of non-binary people, male and female identified folks, whether cis or trans. But when I find myself attracted to those people, their gender is a factor in the reason that I'm attracted to them. And most people I've met who identify themselves as pansexual say that gender just plain doesn't matter. It's other things that make that are the attraction. That gender isn't even a part of the equation.
Okay,
whereas
I see what you're
for
saying.
people who are bi, gender is still part of the equation. It's just that it's not limited to just one. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, I understand now. Yeah,
would you say that's accurate?
Yes,
okay.
I would say that's accurate for myself. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say I speak for all bisexuals, but
I do.
Yeah, yeah, Trav does. Trav can tell me if I'm wrong, and I'll go flush myself down the toilet a second time. But yeah, I think for me that's very accurate. It's just like I find different things beautiful in different genders, but I am attracted to various genders. So
right, because there's masculinity that I find attractive. Mm-hmm. There's femininity that I find attractive. There's androgyny that I find attractive, and those are specific things that I do find attractive about people. Whereas those things for people who are pansexual may not matter. The phrase that I usually hear pan folks say is "hearts, not parts."
Yes.
I mean, it depends. Again, like Trav was saying about bisexual, it depends on who you ask, because people using this same label to define their sexuality and their romantic attraction might have certain things in common but not other things in common. So there are some people who use the term pansexual to mean attracted to all genders, and there are some people who use the term pansexual to mean gender doesn't really matter. So it's a whole mess at the moment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also identify as bisexual because with pansexual, I mean, say I were to go around, say a smaller town or something and be like, hey, y'all, I'm pansexual. They'd be like, what the hell is that? You're attracted to pans? Like,
right.
What is that?
I get that all the time.
And so I think that a lot of
Cooking
people
just gets me going.
Yeah, seriously. Yes. I mean, that gets me going too as well. So, but I feel like there's more people they know what bisexual is, at least.
Right.
It's more of a common thing. It has more of a foundation. I mean, there are definitely problems with what people perceive about bisexual people, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I think that people, at least with that one, there's less explaining to do, and there's more of a community established there. Since since I only knew what pansexual even was my freshman year of college, which was back in 2011, so I'd heard all the other, I guess, parts of the acronym before, but I was like, pansexual? What the hell's that,
Hello, I'm Alan Cumming. Live Out Loud is calling on the LGBT community to help improve life for gay teens. Take what you know and gay it forward through the Homecoming Project, a chance to return to your old high school and share your story with LGBTQ youth. Your life experiences and wisdom can prove invaluable to teens who may be struggling with their own identities and paths in life. One day can make a lasting difference. Gay it forward with the Homecoming Project. Find us at liveoutloud.info to learn how you can get involved today.
The staff of Secular Coalition for America lobbies U.S. Congress on issues of separation of church and state, and they've become a powerhouse for change in the United States government. You'll definitely want to subscribe to receive their email action alerts. These are updates for important issues and ones that you can get involved with directly. And hopefully, you'll consider making a contribution to the Secular Coalition for America to help them continue fighting for your equality. You can do it all at secular.org.
Let's talk about figuring out that this is who you are. So, we've done a lot of talk, not lately, but in the past on the show about, coming out and kind of, figuring out who you are and that kind of stuff. And I'm curious, because, obviously, figuring out that you're trans and figuring out that you're queer are not, they're not necessarily equivalent experiences, but I think figuring out that you're a different kind of queer, like I'm not just gay, or I'm not just straight, do you see in differences, and when you hear people talk about coming out as gay, do you see and hear differences in the way that they relate their experience with figuring out who they are, and the way that you relate your experience in figuring out who you are?
Well, for me, discovering my bisexuality in high school, it was very confusing to me because this is like the late 90s, and so there was, of course, all these gay characters you see on starting to be more prevalent on television. They all had like the same narrative, they discover that they're attracted to people of the same sex instead of the opposite sex. But for me, it was so I just thought, oh, well, if I'm gay, then it should be pretty obvious that I don't like women. But I was like, but I do love women. And so I just thought, well, maybe I'm just really confused because, I always like to tell people this. I remember being in high school and just thinking, oh, women, they're so beautiful. And yet I really want to kiss my best friend, Anthony. What is going on here? So, I didn't think I was gay enough or queer enough to come out. And I just thought that it was just, quote unquote, a phase that a lot of people say, well, that phase has been going on for quite a little more than a decade now. So, I guess it's not.
And what about you, Morgan?
For me, it was also very confusing, but I went to a fundamentalist Christian boarding school for high school. So, yeah, yikes. So, a lot of baggage there, obviously. And so, I noticed even when I look back, things from when I was younger, and I can definitely see now, I'm like, oh yeah, I was totally bi. How did I not freaking see that? But I remember then I would, I would be attracted to girls, but then I would tell myself, no, you're not like that. Because I was, terrified I was going to burn in hell, and I already had that mentality that God hated me. So, from my mother dying and things like that, and me having to go to that awful place. And so I said, no, I'm just, I'm admiring their beauty in a non-sexual way. Which, looking back, I'm like, that is such total bullshit, Morgan, that you were telling yourself.
Yeah, I kind of figured out that I was doing the same thing about guys.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm just, not in a sexual way, but yeah, it totally was sexual. And, I just kind of repressed that part of myself for so long. And then finally, I guess when I got into college and I started unpackaging all this religious indoctrination, all this bullshit, and I just came out with a flamethrower kind of, I was like, fuck you, I'm bi. Go fuck yourselves. But even then, I was selective about who I came out to, because I noticed that when I came out to certain people, they would just look at me like, oh. Even people that I knew were accepting of, gay people or even trans people, and they would just say things like, if it was a guy, they'd say, oh, are you down for a threesome? Or
oh, God.
Right.
If it was a girl, they're like, oh, are you sure you're not really bar sexual?
God.
Jesus.
Yeah, and things like that. And so I was just like, well, fuck. Like, I'm not going to come out to anybody. And then finally I was like, you know what? Again, I was like, fuck people's opinions. And what's interesting is, again, I was very selective because I didn't want my family to find out. But recently I was outed. My first guest appearance before I was a co-host on No Religion Required, somebody I suspect from French camp heard the episode, sent it to my father in an email, and I suspected somebody from French camp because my father completely avoids social media. His contact info is nowhere out there, and that is the only person I can think of that would have his contact information.
Well, and also, we all know that we can't trust the French, so...
Ironically, they did not teach French there. But,
wow, really?
Yeah, it was called French camp because it was French settlers settled there on, like, the Natchez Trace, which is, like, a super long road for trading and stuff, so French camp. But it's a horrible place. I don't recommend going there unless you're there to troll. But... So they sent it to my father, and I remember, and I got outed as an atheist as well, obviously, because I was, a guest on No Religion Required. And he listened to the audio, and it was super awkward at first because I still thought my dad thought I was a straight Christian. So, he started talking to me, and he said, I'm really praying for you. And I said, well, Daddy, that's all you can do. And, all this awkward stuff. And then finally he was just like, I know you're an atheist. And then I was like, oh, shit. Now I look stupid. And then he said, also, you said some things about your sexuality. And then he said this person that sent him that clip told him to cut off all contact with me, which I'm already to an extent sort of estranged, but that's because of some different issues. But they told him, cut off all contact with me, and then also to pray that bad things happen to me so I'd become straight and Christian again.
Oh, fuck.
And then he looked at me and he said, there were just tears welling up in my eyes because I was like, I've heard this a million times. I mean, how many sad stories do I hear on Callie's podcast? Here it comes. I'm going to be another sad story. I'm going to be another sad story. And it was just like tears rolling down my face. And he looked at me and he just goes, you're my daughter. I'm not doing that. I love you no matter what. But then all that kind of got taken aback because he threw out that, but I don't approve of your lifestyle.
Right.
So he still loves me and he still, acknowledges that I'm his child. But again, he's just like, that love the sinner, hate the sin mentality. So, I mean, but now that he knows, I really don't care who knows, except for like my grandparents, which, I mean, they're not on Twitter. So, there's that. But yeah, so I'm pretty out now, but that's partly because I've been outed.
Yeah, which is an unbelievably shitty thing to do.
Yeah, I was also outed to my mom when I was I think I was 15, and that was a terrible experience. So please don't ever do that to people because there's major safety issues going on there.
Yeah, it went well for me to an extent. I mean, besides the lifestyle thing, but much worse could have happened. But that does not mean you need to do that to think that it will help somebody out of a closet because, again, there is severe safety issues, and I cannot stress that enough. Especially if LGBT or atheist or anything of that nature. Please don't.
Yeah, I don't know that people can fully appreciate what a threat that can be for some people. I'm fortunate in that, even if I had been outed against my will as trans, unless it was at work, which, I mean, I guess I kind of was, but, I'd put myself out there where I was on the news and stuff like that, so I didn't really have the right to expect that they wouldn't figure it out.
That wasn't me.
But, right, yeah, it was my twin that I never told you about before that has but it's not just a matter of, forcing someone into an awkward conversation. I don't know if anyone has seen this video on YouTube of this kid coming out to his parents, and then his dad beats the shit out of him, on a YouTube video after them, getting into an argument over it. So, this is super important stuff. And I even have people, they come to me and they're, they'll say, hey, is it okay if I talk to this person about you? Cause I don't want to put your business out there. And I'm like, I'm about as public as a person. Unless this show gets picked up by freaking NPR or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm about as out there as it gets, and people still ask me that, and I appreciate that because it's something that's super, super serious. So yeah, don't ever, and you can do things unintentionally, even if you're trying to help. I have a friend, well, I'd call him more of an acquaintance in the trans community here, who, when I told her where I worked, she said, "Oh, my boss's kid works there, and they're trans too. Have you met?" And I was like,
yes.
"Whoa, like, no." Like,
I talk to this person all the time on my trans telepathy that I have.
Right. And the thing was, the answer was yes, I had talked to this person, and they had approached me and outed themselves to me and everything. But like that was not that person's story to tell. You know what I mean? That person, even me being another trans person, they may not have wanted to be out to me. They may not have wanted me to know. And that's 100% that person's right. To give that information to as few or as many people as they want.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's the whole thing where sometimes I remember when I did a recent study abroad in Cambridge, and I took an international law and gender class, and a lot of people dropped it because they were basically talking about how they had a moral compass and it violated their religious beliefs because we were just going to talk about how LGBTQ people were people. And I so badly wanted to say something, but then again, I was scared.
Well, yeah, and that's the reason a lot of us stay in the closet for so long is because we're afraid of what can happen, and you'll find people who have never said a word about LGBT stuff their entire lives, and it turns out there's some flavor of queer or trans, and they never spoke out about it before because they're terrified of being found out. And I guess this conversation's kind of veering off course, but that's all important stuff. Something that I was thinking about earlier. And Trav, this one's mostly for you, and Ari too.
Because we're the token NBs, right?
Yeah. It seems like there's some intersectionality there when you're talking about, someone can accept the fact that someone is gay. You're a dude and you like dudes, whatever. But when someone says, no, like, I'm attracted to several different genders, people seem to be skeptical of that, sort of in the same way that they're skeptical of the idea of someone being non-binary. Is that accurate?
Well, first I should say everybody should take a shot because our conversation went straight to gay kids killing themselves. Oh, everyone take a shot. We talked about queer kid suicide on Gaytheist Manifesto again. I'm sorry. Bingo.
That's coming, Trav. Don't ruin it.
Oh yes. Yeah. I haven't really experienced a lot of skepticism about bisexuality in the quote-unquote skeptical community. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some, like,
Oh, I just mean in general, not just in the atheist community or anything like that. Because it's an attitude that I see a lot. Someone's like, well, I can get that you can be gay, but, like, you just got to pick one,
Oh, yeah. Okay. I will say this, though. My first boyfriend... I don't know if he was totally cool with me being bi because when we first started talking, he said that he dated a bisexual guy or two that totally cheated on him. I mean, I was totally faithful to him during our 9-month relationship, but he would sometimes make little jokes like he said, "I'm going to end your addiction to pussy." And
oh my God.
Yeah. And
what
like
a shithead.
And he once shared a meme with me on Facebook that had this picture of like this weird scary monster, and it said, "How gay men see vaginas." And I'm like
why? Like, why would you do that?
What?
I don't know, but when he finally broke up with me, it wasn't over the bisexuality thing. It was just other issues.
Obviously.
Right.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, actually, what happened was I have mental health problems. He has mental health problems. So he felt like, he had to really focus on himself, and he felt like I was somehow kind of inadvertently telling him he has to use his spoons on me, but that's a different story. But anyways, when he broke up with me, he said something like, you can now find another guy or another girl, to make you happy or something like that. So kind of shitty that he actually acknowledged my bisexuality in the very.
I
Negative
was breaking
sense.
up with you.
Hooray for affirmation, kinda.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I feel like there's two sides to this kind of topic we're going on, and one is the straight reaction to bisexuality, and then the other is stereotypes about bisexuality within the queer community. So you were talking about, Callie, like people when you come out as bisexual or pansexual in my case, that people can have a hard time understanding that you can be attracted to more than one gender, and that happened to me when I was outed to my mom. She didn't even really know what bisexual was. My older brother's gay, so she knew about homosexuality, but she thought that I was. Well, this was long before I figured out my gender. So at the time, I would have been referred to as a girl, and she said, well, if you're a girl and you're attracted to girls, then that means you're a lesbian. And I kept trying to explain to her, no, I'm attracted to, more than just girls. Like, I've had a boyfriend before, that I'm not just attracted to girls. And I don't know if she ever understood it. I still don't know, because after that, we never talked about it again. But she was, I don't know, she just totally could not wrap her head around the concept. She's a very black and white thinker, which is a lot of why we don't talk anymore, because we don't get along. But so she was, I don't know, she couldn't understand the nuance of you can be attracted to more than one kind of gender. So there's that, and then the other side is, like Trav was saying about their ex-boyfriend, that there are even, gay people, lesbians, that don't understand bisexual people or pansexual people. And this is something that is definitely improving, as is the perceptions from the straight community as well. As time goes on, people get more educated, people are starting to understand more. But, there are still gay people out there who feel that bisexuals are like co-opting the movement or co-opting the struggle, because bisexuals, for a lot of people, if you're, let's say that you're a cis woman, a bisexual cis woman who's in a relationship with a cis man, you appear straight to most people just because of the relationship that you're in. It doesn't mean that you're straight. It doesn't mean you're not bisexual, but because you're in that relationship, people perceive you as being straight, so you don't have a lot of the same difficulties that a gay couple might have. So gay people might feel like, you're trying to jump on our bandwagon and like co-opt our struggle and be, oh, woe is me, I have issues too, when it's the gay people that are actually suffering. And there is, there's some truth to that. Bisexual people, have a little bit of privilege in the sense that they can be with someone who, is of an opposite gender, or not an opposite gender, but a different gender from them. So, they have that privilege when they're out in public with their partner, that they don't have to worry about, getting stared at or getting harassed or violence against them. They don't have to worry about talking to their family about their partner, whereas gay people always have to worry about that. But then, of course, bi and pan people could also potentially be with someone of the same gender, or, appearing to be the same gender if one of them is trans or something. So, there are different struggles, if you want to use the word struggles, but definitely I think they belong in the same community, because there's a lot of similarities and overlap there as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the bi and pan people that I know often talk about not feeling like they're queer enough.
Yes.
Morgan or Trav, you want to take that one?
Yeah. I think I actually wrote a paper that referred to this, and I compared a lot of the way trans people are treated by both the straight community and the LGBT community, and bisexual people in a section of the paper. And it's really because, we challenge the binary. So it's, this idea that you're either straight or you're either gay. And so I think that makes it really difficult for people to come out, because we don't feel safe in, challenging that binary, so to speak. But yeah, you definitely get different reactions from LGBT, and then the straight, I don't know if it's community, but straight people. And yeah, it's just I did some research, and I found that bisexual people are actually more likely than homosexual or heterosexual people to try to kill themselves. They have a higher rate of violence against them, all these things. And it's because they don't feel safe in coming out. They have no support of the LGBT system, and they have no support in the straight system. And it's dealing with that, but then it's also just, I mean, where do you go?
You're not straight enough to, get support from the straight people, and you're not gay enough to get support from the gay people.
Exactly. Right. And you get dismissed by both, and that's extremely harmful. I mean, that's why bi people are they're not likely to come out and speak out and say, hey, here I am. Yeah, I might be able to use this straight privilege, so to speak. And I think that does cause a lot of resentment. That, if I have a boyfriend, I can go out and I can, say, unless I'm outed in such a way, I didn't have to have that conversation with my dad. As long as I didn't date a woman, in a serious way. And so I think that does cause a lot of resentment. But the thing is, we all have to move with these issues together because, again, everything's intersectional. And I think that part of the reason that trans people and bi people are facing exclusion and facing these unique problems is because the LGBTQ community has not moved together. They've been very exclusionary.
Yeah, right. I agree. And I think, along the lines of speaking about, the sort of privilege that comes with at least appearing on the outside to be heteronormative, I think the companion conversation to that has to be about erasure, though. Yes. Because what happens is, when we have these struggles, like, I think sometimes people, and I would say listeners to this show, if you've made it this far, you're probably not one of these people, but I think a lot of times people don't understand why being queer is a matter of identity, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, I'm left-handed and I'm a dude who likes dudes. You know what I mean? It becomes an identity because of these struggles that we have to go through because of the society that we grew up in that tells us that, the default person is this, I am not that, therefore there's something wrong with me. So there's the community building around that idea and the work that it takes to figure out who you are and to become okay with who you are. So, I mean, that's a journey. And when you go through society and you end up like, yeah, you know what? I am attracted to someone who makes it appear on the outside that we have the quote-unquote normal, heteronormative relationship. There is obviously a privilege there in that there are certain things that you don't have to worry about, but there's also erasure. That means that you're walking through the world with people not really knowing who you are. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that you're not broadcasting the intimate details of your personal life to everyone, but there's the idea there that you're almost having to hide who you are in order to get those things. So there is privilege there, but there's also erasure, and I think that's an important thing to have. Trav, you sounded like you had something to say. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was just about to say, when you're talking about erasure and privilege, well, I have a friend named Sherry Eisner. She wrote a book a couple years ago called Notes for a Bisexual Revolution. And in one chapter, she talks about the whole, do bisexuals have straight privilege because they can fall in love with people of a different gender? What she says, it's not necessary. It's what she calls not passing privilege. It's more like coercive passing. She's a woman, she's happens to be dating a guy, therefore instead of, basically society automatically assumes that she's straight simply because she's dating a guy, or likewise if, I tend to wear lipstick and paint my nails, so I might not totally pass as if I start dating a girl, we might not totally pass as a straight couple. I don't know. But that's a different subject altogether. But likewise, if like a bisexual guy is dating a woman, everyone sort of basically automatically assumes that he's straight, and so therefore contributes to by erasure even more. Does that make any sense? I mean, if you read the book, she can explain it a lot better than I can.
No, I think it makes sense because it's it's feeding into heteronormative ideas, but not because of any action that you're taking. It's because society makes that assumption. And when people see you, they automatically assume, like, oh, okay, there's a person who appears to be a guy with a person who appears to be a girl, so therefore that's a straight cis couple.
Yes.
Yeah, and it causes you to have to come out sort of over and over again, too.
Oh, God, that's the worst, having to come out over and over again.
Yeah, because people do make those assumptions. Either they'll assume that I'm, I guess if I'm with a woman, that I'm a lesbian, or if I'm with a man, that I'm straight. And it's like, no, let me sit here and I have to explain this whole thing to you. And then again, you don't know the reaction you're going to get. Right. So it's a terrifying experience every time. And I think that's why so many people, again, they just don't say anything, because they're sort of coerced by those assumptions. But then also there's that fear that if I break those assumptions, what is going to be the reaction? Because you do it over and over. And yeah, there'll be some people that are supportive, but guess what? There's a lot of assholes too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and tell me, if you're comfortable, if you're comfortable going into it, I mean, have you actually had those experiences where, someone makes an assumption and you correct them and then they're like, whoa, what the F?
Yeah. And then, it'll be usually because I tend to date men. I tend to be in more romantic relationships with men, but, overall, so say somebody's talking about something, or sometimes it'll be when somebody's talking trash about the LGBTQ community, and sometimes I'll feel the need to be like,
because they feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, because they assume
right.
that I'm straight, and I'm like, guess what? I'm bi, and then they'll just laugh and say like, whatever, that's not a thing, or say, oh, you just do it for attention. Because, yes, I love the attention of being a queer woman in Mississippi. I love it, let me tell you. And, yeah, it's just it's very difficult. You get in this trap, like, it's like, do I say something? But then again, if I don't, I feel like I'm almost a hypocrite. And I feel like I've sort of betrayed my community by that, because I'm like, wow, what if I could have challenged that person's assumptions? But then again, it's like, what if they had a bad reaction and I no longer feel safe around that person? Or I can't be who I am around that person, or they have, differing perceptions about me now, which in law school can be a huge deal.
Yeah, I've had that too. I had an awkward conversation with a coworker. I've probably told the story on the show before, so I won't go into super huge details or anything like that. But, she asked me if I had a boyfriend, and the activist in me wanted to be like, what makes you assume that I'm straight? But I just let it go, because it's like, and in theory I could be attracted to guys, and I wasn't in a relationship at the time, so like I just said no and let it go. And then it came up later, and I was like, yeah, I like girls, and she's like, oh, okay, like I was like, I like guys too, and I was, again, I felt like a bad activist, because I wasn't even ready to be like, yeah, and I like non-binary people too, because like, what the hell does that even mean?
Exactly.
But then like an hour later, she turns around and she goes, so what do you think about this whole Bruce Jenner situation? I'm like, shit. Like, I'm gonna have to. So like I did my little spiel about, well, visibility's good, but it's a double-edged sword, because it brings a backlash, but like, the trans community needs visibility, and, there are problems, and so on and so forth. And she's like, that's just not a thing that I really know a whole lot about. And at that point, I obviously had a decision to make.
Yeah. Well, funny you should say that.
Right. And I just kind of looked at her and really awkwardly was like, well, I'm transgender. And it was just like, and a unicorn appeared. She was just absolutely shocked, which was kind of affirming. But yeah, it's just, and you never know which way those things are going to go. And I was at work, so if she really had that much of a problem with it, like, that could have turned bad for me really fast. So like, and it sucks because, when, especially when you're in these situations, you're at work or whatever, like anyone in the world who is cis and straight, generally speaking, can feel comfortable making conversation at work about their spouse. What'd you do this weekend? Oh yeah, me and the wife took a vacation to blah blah blah. Like, no big deal. But like, when someone asks me that question, I'm comfortable where I'm at now. the place that I work is a very happy place to be a queer and trans. Nobody cares, so like that's good. But when I first started, it was like, how do I answer those questions? Like, do I pretend? And like when customers are trying to make conversation and they ask, like, first of all, I have to figure out if they've gendered me correctly. So if I'm gonna lie, I have to tell the right lie. So yeah, it's just it's awful. That was a really long tangent.
Oh no, it went perfectly. Yeah, no, it fit in perfectly with it's like, do you say anything or do you not? And it's always that sort of guilt. But then again, you don't. I mean, I want to be well liked. And I mean, with law school, it's a very tight community, and I mean, I feel like most people by now, because I'm sure people have told each other and things like that I'm bisexual, and usually I get a good reaction from people in law school because they're usually more educated, but you'd be surprised.
I'm not sure that I would, to be honest, because I have seen some,
senators and Liberty Council, they somehow all have degrees, so there's that, but yeah, it's just, the struggle is real.
I've struggled with confidence throughout my life, and I've struggled with shame and internalized transphobia and internalized racism and internalized classism. And so I have all that stuff, but there was something in me believed I had something special. Telling the truth to myself about myself is awesome because it's just a relief, because I don't have to try to be something I'm not. I can just be. Who you are authentically is all right. The shame is what kills you. Believing that you are unworthy of love and belonging, that who you are authentically is a sin or is wrong, is deadly. Who you are is beautiful and amazing. It's important with all of the messages that might tell you otherwise, that you have that in yourself to say that I am beautiful, I'm smart, and I'm amazing.
Before we jump back into the show, it's time to thank our patrons. Big shout out this week to Candace and to James and Jonathan for upping their pledges. Thank you so much for collaborating in our continuing mission to smuggle penises into women's restrooms and force everyone into their very own gay marriage. To find out more, please go to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto. Thank you. So what do we do? I mean, do you have... So the question is, because you were talking earlier about, we don't feel like we 100% belong in the gay community. Obviously don't 100% belong with other straight people. In terms of if you're going to commiserate about these things and you're going to talk about relationships and sexuality and stuff like that, it sucks. But I mean, I 100% hear what you're saying, because I've seen plenty of it about the biphobia and bi erasure in the broader queer community, which is tragic. But I mean, do you just is there like a secret society where you pass notes like, hey, me too? What do you do with that?
Well, actually, there are several good bisexual communities on Facebook. Probably the biggest one is Binet USA. People can go to facebook.com/groups/BinetUSA, BINETUSA. Binet USA is probably the best known and largest group of bisexuals. You can definitely check them out. And there's also some other groups as well. I don't know how, I hardly go on Tumblr anymore, so I don't know if...
That's probably a good idea.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but there was a group that I was a part of on Tumblr called Bi Tumblr, which even though Tumblr gets a bad rep, and yeah, there's a lot of bad arguments and oppressed Olympics on Tumblr, I did meet a lot of great fellow bisexuals and a lot of fellow genderqueer bisexuals as well. And so basically, if you're looking for community, there are places online. You just have to look for them.
Fair enough. And
yeah, same. I think that there's more of an online community because then again, I mean, if you're joining these bi groups online, people aren't going to make necessarily those same assumptions that they make in public. Also, again, with not feeling completely safe to come out to LGBTQ people, but then also straight people, I think that's a good way to get support is from these online communities and social media. But I think as these social media groups are getting more popular and I'm seeing more memes and things like that, so just people often, the show Orange is the New Black, I noticed more people were talking about, okay, why do they keep saying that the main character was a lesbian? Do they not know that, like, bisexual people are a thing? And I was just like, yes, applause, you get it. You get it. You finally are going to stop asking me that. Were you a lesbian? Are you not now? But, yeah, so that's, again, with media representation being important. But also, so I think things are changing for the better. And I think eventually it'll be a place where, you can come out and maybe we can form these sort of more real communities, even in places like Mississippi.
Right.
And Trav, I gotta wonder, is there, because I've seen, because obviously, gender identity, sexuality, not describing the same facet of who you are. And there are plenty of people who say, people who are trans who say that, the sexuality thing is 100% separate. They have literally nothing to do with each other. There's no intersection there at all. I am someone for whom there is sort of an intersection there, and I'm curious if there is that for you or not.
I always felt like, we all know that sexuality and gender are two completely different things. You don't have to be completely effeminate. You don't have to be, like, if you're a trans woman, that doesn't automatically mean you're attracted to guys. If you're a trans male, that doesn't automatically mean you like girls. And likewise, if you're genderqueer or even bisexual, you don't have to be like both bisexual and genderqueer at the same time. It just happens to be for me, But I do see some sort of similarity. I do see a lot of similarities between the two because, being both bisexual and genderqueer, I'm like right in the middle of both the gender and the sexual spectrums, which is probably another reason why, like, the last time I was on the show to talk about being genderqueer, I talked about, being in that weird in-between space where it's like, okay, I'm not a cis man, so I definitely don't belong. I don't really feel comfortable, or I don't feel like these are my people with this group of men, but I'm also not a woman, so it's like you kind of have to navigate where you're supposed to be. And once again, you often go back to finding online communities. So I know that was very long-winded, but hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. And then, as far as figuring out, those things about yourself, is there any sort of intersection there? Or were those separate processes?
Well, I always felt like I was androgynous, but I just thought, oh, I'm androgynous because I'm bisexual, So
I know them feels.
Oh, yes, exactly. In fact, I didn't even know genderqueer was a thing until like a couple of years ago. I just thought, oh, I just have a very androgynous personality. So, but even when I discovered the word genderqueer, I thought, well, gee, does this label really fit me? Like, I don't really feel the need to take hormones or have surgery. I just like to present as femme. And so, yeah, discovering my gender identity and discovering my sexuality were both long processes where I had to, like, basically, I know this is going to sound bad for an atheist podcast, do some soul searching and just really kind of go into a process of trying to, find out who I am.
Fair enough. And Ari, I know you identify as pansexual, not bisexual, but I'm just curious, while we're on the topic, is there sort of any sort of intersection there between figuring those things out about yourself or anything like that?
Yes and no. Mostly no, but a little bit of yes. They were definitely separate things for me, many years apart. I figured out my sexuality when I was 15, and I didn't figure out my gender until I was, I think, 21. So that would have been 3 years ago. So they were very separate processes. But like Trav was saying, I felt, pretty androgynous and felt like I didn't connect with a lot of the girls and I didn't connect with a lot of the boys. So I attributed a lot of that to, being, I used the word bisexual at the time. Now I use the word pansexual, but, just basically not being straight pretty much. So for a long time, I would attribute things to that. And there was a period right after I first figured out my sexuality that I would jokingly refer to myself as a gay boy in a bisexual girl's body. Which
nice.
Yeah. Because there was, a masculine side to me that was also a queer side to me in a strange way. If you think of a gay man, he's still a man, even if the stereotype is that gay men are feminine. Obviously, that's not the case for all or maybe even most gay men. But, a gay man is attracted to men, but he's attracted to men in a queer way. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, unless you're queer and you can kind of understand what that means. But so I felt like that. Like when I was, attracted to girls, it was queer. When I was attracted to guys, it was queer as well. So
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It made a lot of...
I didn't get it until you just said that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like no matter who I'm attracted to, it's queer because I'm not... I'm not a man or a woman.
Right.
So it made a lot more sense when I realized, my gender, that a lot of those feelings that I was having about my sexuality were more related to my gender than they actually were to my sexuality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And the reason that I ask is because there's the mantra in the trans community that, like, gender and sexuality are two different things. They have nothing to do with each other. And I think, like a lot of things, I think we get tied to those ideas because those are things that are forced on us, and we want to forcefully reject those things, not recognizing that for some of us, those things may have something to do with each other. Like, I wasn't able to figure out my sexuality until I'd figured out my gender. So, that was kind of the intersection there. So yeah, that's the reason that I asked, because I think that's an interesting conversation to get to the nuance of. So Morgan and Trav, this has been an awesome conversation. I have learned a lot, even as a person who fancies myself very competent in all of these things, so I definitely appreciate it. Why don't you tell us where we can find the show?
Okay, well, you can go to either Spreaker, iTunes, or Stitcher and just look up the Biskeptical Podcast. We usually post twice a month, and outside of the Biskeptical Podcast, you can listen to my main podcast, By Any Means, and that's also on Spreaker, iTunes, and Stitcher. And you can also read my blog at freethoughtblogs.com/byanymeans. Morgan?
All right. You can also find me on No Religion Required on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker. You can listen to the live show there, but you can also find us on Stitcher and iTunes as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you both. This has been a great conversation. I definitely appreciate the time and all the knowledge there. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it was fun to have a conversation.
And that, my friends, is going to do it for this episode of the Gaytheist Manifesto on Secular Media Network. Definitely want to thank Morgan and Trav again for their time and their insight. You can find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaytheistmanifesto. You can email us at thegaytheistmanifesto@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at GaytheistCali. You can find the show on Twitter at TheGaytheist. And I'm sure Ari has a thing.
Okay, before I get into that, just housekeeping thing. So Jeremiah and I are going to be in St. Louis hanging out next weekend, which will be Friday the 12th through Sunday the 14th. So if you are in that area and you want to meet up with us possibly for some dinner or something, let me know, because that would be a lot of fun. We were going to be there for the Gateway to Reason conference, and it got canceled, and we were just like, well, let's just go anyway and turn it into a date. So that's what we're doing.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's so cute. So, Trav mentioned before something about taking a shot. And I actually, if you haven't seen it, if you don't follow us on social media, you probably haven't seen this, but I made a Gaytheist Manifesto bingo card, where you know how bingo works. Whenever, you get one of the things, you put your little trip on there, and if you get it across the row, or you get it diagonally, or if you get it vertically, then you get bingo. Well, I think we should go through what we just did on our episode and see if we get bingo. What do you guys think?
I'm into it.
All right.
I'm in.
All right, let's see. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want people to go and read this. Let's see. Ari mentions Jeremiah. I did that. That's one of them. The free space in the middle is topic is depressing as hell. And we did talk about, bad things. So we get that one. Guest misgenders Ari. We got that.
Oh, I'm the worst.
Episode has nothing to do with atheism. It had a little bit to do with atheism, but not a whole lot. Binary gets smashed. Morgan smashed it. Hey, allies, here's how to ally real good. Don't be outing people. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think we got bingo on this episode, but I think we got to try harder to be more stereotypical. So
yeah, we got to work on that.
Anyway, if you want to see this bingo card, you should be my friend on Facebook. My name is Ari Stillman, or you can follow the Gay Theist Manifesto on Facebook because I put it on there. Or if you don't do Facebook and you want this bingo card, you can email me at aristillman4@gmail.com. And I also have bingo cards at the moment for No Religion Required, God-awful movies, and Scathing Atheist. And there are going to be bingo cards for other shows coming out as well. So that is my contribution to the atheist community, is these bingo cards.
And it's a fantastic contribution.
It is.
I definitely encourage everyone. These things are hilarious.
Yes.
Ari, you were doing a true community service, my friend.
Oh yes.
That.
Oh, this is the part where I deflect a compliment. That's also on the bingo card.
Yeah, I'm framing the NRR bingo card and I'm putting it above my podcast station.
There you go. See?
Perfect. If you want to support the show and the activism we do, you can head to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto and make a per episode donation as little as $1 per episode. And if you can't do that, you can also head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. That helps us get heard by a lot more people. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gay Theist Manifesto.